Season 9 of the FIA Formula 2 Championship began down under for the very first time. In the wars, early title challenges straight away in Victor Martins and Jack Crawford. A bad day at the office as well for Trident. Dino Beganovic spinning as he chased after points, but out front it was full points for Joshua Dirksen, who got himself a win as he goes after the title in 2025. Welcome everyone to your first feature race of the Formula 2 season. We are here at Albert Park Circuit in slightly different conditions, but the circuit itself, of course, stays the same. This is going to be the challenge for the drivers today. We had 23 laps in the sprint race yesterday, 33 laps today with a pit stop coming up as well at the end of 6 laps is when pit lane will open. 14 turns in total. A very, very quick circuit. If it's wet, of course, we will expect DRS to be disabled for DRS zones if that is at any point to be enabled. Well, my name is Chris McCarthy. A pleasure to have your company throughout this season. Joining us for the ride, once again, the very familiar voice of Alex Brundle. What isn't familiar, Alex, is that rain in Australia. Glorious. They weren't expecting that. I mean, they've still got a good spot for the track, but weren't expecting rain.
Glorious sunshine yesterday. Wet weather conditions today. Welcome back, everybody, to the Grand Prix of the second tier. Grand Prix Sunday of this first race meeting of the year, and the first time that Formula 2 has begun in Albert Park. We had a great sprint race yesterday. Interesting stuff. Rookies and experienced drivers relishing in the challenge of this tight but really fast venue, sitting in parklands alongside the lake here in Albert Park. As you say, Chris, extremely different conditions today. It's been raining all morning. We did manage to get a Formula 3 feature race away earlier on, but significant challenges for the drivers. And over this longer feature race format, 33 laps, these young Chargers, 22 young Chargers on the grid, are going to have their work cut out. Let's have a look at how they line up.
Yeah, we'll take you back to front for the starting grid. As Alex said, 22 of them out there in total. Max Esterson will be at the back. There are some grid penalties. We'll take you through those at the end. Anne-Marie Cordier will be alongside. Sami Megatunif and Kush Miney, someone who went well in the wet last year, will be alongside him. Cian Shields next. John Bennett, the only one making his debut at the circuit this weekend. Cian Shields for AIX Racing. One of the Red Bull juniors, Ollie Goethe, is next. Alex Dunn, the first Irish driver in the championship, and a McLaren junior. Rafael Villagomez, the Mexican, will be on row 7 with Jack Crawford hoping for better fortunes today. Then the 2 Red Bull juniors and Campos Racing teammates, Pepe Marti and Arvid Lindblad. And then we're into the top 10. Ritomo Miata, the Toyota back driver, alongside Sebastian Montoya, back with Prema, and in the points straight away, Leo Fornaroli into Formula 2 full-time this season and onto the podium yesterday. On the top step was Joshua Dirksen. High-Tech TGR teammates, Luke Browning, first podium yesterday. Dino Beganovic was on his way trying to get there before a spin. Gabriele Mini, 3-place grid drop for him, denying him a pole position. He's alongside Roman Stanek, matching his best qualifying performance. And then Richard Verschoor is going to be on the front row. 4 wins for him. His last win with MP back in 2021. The man ahead of him, though, is Victor Martins, lining up on pole position for the 5th time in FIA Formula 2. Different conditions for them, though, Alex. If you're just joining us for the first time, we have had practice qualifying a sprint race in the dry. Now we are in the wet.
So information from race control initially was that the formation lap would be started behind the safety car on wet weather tyres. We now have the information there will be an aborted start to this Formula 2 race. The Supercars race, the Supercars event before this Formula 2 race was slightly interrupted as well. So at the moment we're in a holding pattern. As you can see, drivers in cars out there on the front straight. This will be for the conditions, of course, and race control need to make a decision about when we're able to get up and running. So aborted start means that we'll have to go back through a sequence of timed announcements from race control before we can get back underway.
Let's go through the thinking here of the drivers, the teams. From your experience, Alex, drivers coming into the circuit this morning, the rain has been something that they would have been expecting from Thursday, Friday, but still, how are they going to be approaching this now? They've had, in pre-season testing, it was completely dry from what they had at Barcelona, so for some drivers, rookies, it's going to be one of the first times they get their hands on the car, and they're doing it at a track. Last time they were here, it was maybe in an F3 car in dry conditions. It's
been incredibly well announced rain, this. As we're just given the information, the formation lap will start at 11:42. So that's in around 10 minutes time. So a 10-minute delay then to the beginning of that formation lap. The Formula 3 race earlier started under safety car conditions, as is often the way. So it was a rolling start under safety car conditions. So the drivers will have been preparing for this, will have prepared in the best way that they possibly can by gathering any information that they can from all over the world of motorsport, any possible information that they can get about the nature of the circuit. We're looking at the MP car of Richard Verschoor, though, who appears to have a technical issue on the grid, we're hearing. So looking at a bit of a race against time for MP.
So they aborted the start because, as I said, Verschoor is having an issue and everybody was still in the car.
So we suspected maybe it's conditions, but Invicta telling us over radio that this is possibly the reason for the aborted start. Now, they are working on the car of Richard Verschoor.
Unsure on that one. I've never known a race to be aborted for a specific competitor. It's far more likely to be the conditions in my view. Maybe they have information down at Invicta that we don't, but the normal trajectory would be to the race goes on timed, and the onus is upon the competitor to be ready for the race. In any case, they do have a little bit of extra time to get that car sorted for Verschoor. They're the confirmation that the formation lap will start at 11:42. A little bit heavier rain than we saw earlier on. It's a tricky track in wet conditions, a sequence of roads connected around the park here in Melbourne. That means that there are different types of tarmac around the circuit, white lines painted in the road furniture of the areas that are normally used, especially along the Lakeside Drive section, which runs along the side of the lake, which sits in front of the fabulous skyline here in Melbourne.
Okay, latest info is that the rain will stay as it is for at least the next 30 minutes.
And that the information coming in from Gabriele Mini, that they suspect the rain will stay in for the next 30 minutes. It's going to make for a difficult task for these drivers. They're going to have to adapt. We can see the rain coming in the background.
So the only problem will be standing water. That's what you're looking for as a race director here. And the reason you're looking for that is these cars run so low to the floor, touching the floor on their way into the braking zones with the normally considered wooden, they're no longer wooden, plank that sits underneath the car. And so what tends to happen is the car will float on that plank, and actually the tyre itself will lose contact with the circuit surface, and lending the driver to lose control potentially of the car. So that is always the concern. That aquaplaning, you can be a generational talent. If your steering wheel is not in contact with a set of tyres which are touching the road, then you simply will skate straight off the racetrack.
Okay, so if you stay here and race, you will get a drive-through.
So it's better to take it. We must have a pit lane start because we caused the delay.
How's the confirmation from
Yeah.
MP that they have actually caused that? Well, that is most bizarre. Most bizarre. I've never seen that one before.
Well, they are going to be punished for that in the case that they will now have two options: start from pit lane or take a drive-through.
Yeah, yeah. So that'll fall into the sort of too many personnel on the circuit in time proximity to the race box, I would imagine. But effectively, what they're going to do that you suggest is take the formation lap and then go through the pit lane to start the race. The complicating factor there is, I would say, this one is extremely likely to get started under a rolling start procedure. So quite how that will work for Richard Peugeot remains to be seen. But much discussion going on. We had penalties before the season began here, and now we have further intrigue before the start of the first feature race of the year.
Yeah, so confirmation of those penalties, by the way. It was 10 place penalties to the Dams drivers, the Trident drivers and the Rodin. So that's affected Crawford, Dunn, Miney, Cordial, Megatunif, Esterson in 10 place grid penalties. Mini had a 3 place grid penalty. We're seeing lots of fans in, and of course, many of them will be here to cheer a Formula 2 driver in Oscar Piastri. 12 Formula 2 drivers are now on the grid in Formula 1, showing why this championship is such a good proving ground for Formula 1. 12 currently on the grid, 10 F1 juniors here, so very good opportunity that more could be on the way. We've seen Bruno Michel, our CEO, out there on the grid, and he was talking just about how Formula 2 has been successful in providing drivers to the very top in Formula 1.
I think it's a great news, and I would say, you know, nothing happened for the last 2 or 3 seasons, so it's about time. I think last year we had an absolutely outstanding grid, for sure, and all these drivers that are going to Formula 1 completely deserve it, and they are ready for Formula 1. I have no doubt about that. And I would include Jack, who's been not in F2 last year, but the year before, but it's been testing quite extensively for Alpine last year. And Liam Lawson, even if he's done already a few F1 races. I think it's important that the F1 grid is being renewed, and that comes, you know, some years doesn't happen. We didn't have anybody except for Logan Sargent for the last 2 seasons. And now this year there will be 5 drivers, which is completely amazing. It's certainly a proof that the F1 teams are taking very seriously what we're doing in Formula 2, and that they think that what we're doing add up to what they're doing as well, because all these drivers are part of academies from F1 teams. I think it's very important that this complete preparation between what we're doing and what the F1 teams are doing are making those drivers ready for F1, and that's what we saw last year with some of our drivers that already did a few races, whether it was Oli Berman or whether it was Franco Colapinto. Those drivers were ready, scored points, and showed the F1 teams that it was not a mistake to take them.
Great stuff for Bruno Michel. He spoke there about F1 academies, Alex. 10 currently on the grid this season. Kush Miney just very recently signed as a reserve driver for Alpine. Very good chances that in the even as close as next season, we could see more of these guys going into Formula 1. It's almost half the grid, part of an F1 junior team.
It's great to see them moving through to the top tier. And what's even more impressive when we look at, for example, I don't want to spoil F1 qualifying for anybody who doesn't watch. I know people don't watch these sessions in order, but I think we can be loose enough to say that Hadjar, Doohan, Bortoleto have done an outstanding job this weekend in their first full season the beginning of their first full season in Formula One. It's been a little bit more of a difficult weekend for Oliver Bearman. He's demonstrated his talent and ability elsewhere, and I'm sure he'll be able to bounce back from that one. But it's impressive, just as it is impressive to see drivers like, for example, Leonardo Fornaroli, the Formula 3 champion who did such a great job yesterday in the sprint race, come through from Formula 3 to Formula 2. I think it's even a bigger step. I always describe it as the biggest step drivers make apart from, or since they moved from karting into cars, is from this kind of racing into the world of Formula 1, because of the depth of functionality of the cars, because of the amount of things that there are to change, because of the pressure and intrigue behind the change in the level at which they're racing. And it's really impressive to see those young sports people take that in their stride. Even
Joshua Dirksen was congratulated yesterday by Lewis Hamilton for his win. So the drivers themselves currently in Formula 1, and even the multiple champions, are keeping an eye on these guys. And it was great to see that he congratulated.
So a couple of seconds until we get going then for the formation lap, and conditions looking really, really tricky.
Wow.
I'm going to be very surprised if we see this one get going anywhere near like straight away, but they are choosing to get the formation lap going here, and that is the view then from Victor Martins as he paddles his way down to the duck pond in turn 1 and 2.
Formation lap underway behind the safety car. We ride on board with Victor Martins, who will be on pole position, but that tells a story of the conditions we face.
Now, somewhere in there's a Formula 2 race.
Yeah.
As we look down towards the field as they come through, Victor Martins looking to gather himself after a difficult race yesterday. Comes in 7th place in the championship last year, 5th place the year before. Returns with ART, with whom he's driven his full Formula 2 career, and he'll be looking to take the best out of this race if it's as and when it's able to get going. Really, one of the championship favourites, Richard Verschoor, starting next to him or behind him should it be a rolling start. The most experienced driver in this series will enter his 5th season in the series this year. And then you're dealing with rookies, Stanek, Mini, drivers who are entering their first full season of Formula 2 racing on the 2nd row. And it's going to be interesting to see how those rookies fare. Those are the front runners as the field make their first tentative steps towards getting anywhere near going with this one, but they're not going to be, because we've got a red flag.
And the red flag is out. That is no surprise at all. It is just far too wet for the conditions.
Yeah, no, there've been more surprising calls in the world of feeder series racing than that.
Yeah, and we will see the cars being brought back round to pit lane. Victor Martins ahead of Richard Verschoor, ahead of Roman Stanek, Gabriele Mini, Dino Beganovic, and struggling for coverage.
Look at
in
that.
The poncho.
Tropical. Tropical.
Yeah. So.
British summertime in full force on the other side of the world.
Exactly that. Exactly that. So.
All cars will head back to the pit lane then, holding pattern now, and it's a question of waiting for the conditions to improve. Essentially, race control deeming that this is not a safe condition to be racing in.
Nope, and we will see the cars come back round.
Scattering the Australian wood ducks as they do so. And this is the worst of the weather, isn't it? That's supposed to be coming through today. You can see there is a lot of water on the circuit surface as they paddle their way into the pit lane. And these races, when they are stopped, there's a graded system for how many points are given out. We've not reached it yet because obviously you need the race to get underway and clear 2 laps for there to be any points given out at all. But less than a quarter of the race fits in a column of points that are given out. Then we give out a little bit more when we clear a quarter but do less than a half of the race. We give out a few more clearing a half but less than 75%, and full points are given out at 75% of the race distance. Should the race get underway, there is a mandatory pit stop, even though we are in wet conditions, so that the drivers will have to come in and out. They have to change at least 2 of the tyres, but don't want to get ahead of ourselves because, yeah, monsoon weather conditions at the moment, and drivers are jumping out of the cars.
Yeah, heading for coverage, aren't they? Straight away. Victor Martins, I mean, it's not what we got a car stopped. Yeah. Now, who is it? Is that Alex Dunn, possibly?
Yeah,
that's run into trouble, yeah.
Dunn in the roading has not made his way back into the pit lane there.
Yeah.
And no mechanism to fire that car back up again, so...
No.
They'll get to a point there. I think drivers behind have actually got space to pass Dunn if they want.
Right.
They'll have to check with the team over the radio, but I assume race control, actually, it looks a lot different from the driver's eye view, doesn't it? From
yes,
the camera somewhat widening the pit lane entry there, but Sami Megatunov has kind of had a bit of a nose down the outside. But yeah, Dunn's gonna leave it there.
Jumps out, and he is going to...
He's going to push it.
He's going to push it, yeah.
Do the full Nigel Mansell into the pit lane. Good lad.
Oh, that's at least for the drivers behind now, they can get back to the pit lane. So he's.
We need the rights to some epic music, don't we?
He's doing everyone a favour there, because
the rest of them have had to have switched off now. Yeah. I would have thought, because of the temperature in the engine. Marshals are going to go and help Alex Dunn get that car then down into the pit lane. Yeah. Get in, they're saying.
Yeah, and we will push you down. So Alex Dunn back in his car, and now he'll be pushed down the pit lane. And I think the rest of the drivers are looking down and thinking, what about us? He's kind of set a precedent here, isn't he?
It's like there's a bit of a... Let's have a look at it then. So I reckon Dunn's gonna have to slow or stop here on his way into the pit lane for traffic ahead, and then just plain not get the clutch in and keep the engine alive. Yeah,
right.
Lost the engine on the way in, and then everybody queues up behind him. And it's rather a wet trudge then, isn't it? Down into the pit lane. You feel somewhat sorry for him, but anyway, there we go.
He's back now. Good work by the marshals as always, wherever we go around to all the circuits, helping us go racing.
Good race yesterday for Dunn. Made his way up from 16th on the grid, all the way up into the point-paying positions. Lovely job from the McLaren junior driver. Has been so since 2024. Wound up 14th last year in the Formula 3 Championship. Had a difficult start to this weekend, Alex Dunn, but drove himself back into it through the sprint race yesterday. Victor Martins watches on, and as all racing drivers do in this kind of scenario, trying to pretend he understands the weather radar, as I always do when looking at these wet conditions.
He'll be really hoping this one gets back underway, because he crashed out yesterday through turn 5, and he would have been hoping to get back to full points today. Roman Stanek, likewise, second time we've seen him line up from 3rd, and a great chance for a podium for him today. He got the win here in the sprint race last year, 5th place yesterday, and great pressure tactic driving from him to come through. A very composed drive from Roman Stanek, and just topped off a good day for Invicta Racing, and good chance to go and get a podium today. There's his teammate, Leo Fornaroli, who made a really good start with second place in the sprint race, and they'll all have their own reasons to be really desperate to get this one going, won't they? Crawford, another one, of course, who retired from the race and would have seen this as an opportunity with the pit stops having to be made. You can go about it different ways, can't you? Wet race, he could have used his experience.
Yeah, highest returning seeded driver this year. Jack Crawford comes back having achieved a top 10 finish last year in the series. Great opportunities, of course, coming in 2026 potentially for an American driver, with a new team joining the world of Formula One. And at least someone's having fun.
Yes, exactly that. Oh, well, that gives us an idea of the spray. Richard Verschoor
testing the stability systems of the safety car to their maximum.
Yes, just about managing to see where they're going at the spray. Really, really substantial. Well, Sebastian Montoya had a really good start to Formula 2 yesterday, jumping up from Formula 3 back with Prema. I think JP Montoya would have enjoyed watching on from the sidelines.
We saw happy Juan Pablo, didn't we, yesterday?
We did.
And as well he might be, Sebastian Montoya, a really accomplished first run or first race of a full first season in Formula 2. Dino Beganovic has gone and found himself a friendly garage there, Ferrari Academy driver. Yeah. One of the benefits, isn't it, of being an Academy driver is you can go and hide in the garage of your Academy when it rains hard. I wonder if that's in the contract.
Exactly that.
Providing potential budget, coaching, and shelter in wet conditions.
Otherwise, it's just hide. Here we see Arvid Lindblad, and he's chosen to stay in the car for the time being.
Not sure if you saw, but there was a few ducks in T2.
Oh, we saw them.
It's their weather.
Did you say again? What happened in T2?
There were some ducks, birds, who were having a swim.
Okay. Are you sure they are ducks?
I'm pretty sure it was duck. Yeah, maybe a fish.
Well, I can tell you, Arvid Lindblad, they're Australian wood ducks, as I found out earlier on.
I mean, I'm not sure how he thought they were fish, but there's enough water going down.
It's an Australian species of duck, so
yes,
yeah, it's not a type of duck, not a type of duck I'd seen before.
We've all had a lesson
in the Formula 3 race, and lessons were learned. Lessons were learned. Arvid Lindblad there, choosing to stay in the car.
Gabriele Mini, we saw on screen, 7th place for him yesterday. As you mentioned, Lindblad, for him, he's just choosing to stay in. Gabriele Mini has gone to pit wall. Prema Racing couldn't get by Sebastian Montoya. It was a good battle between them two yesterday. Mini, part of the Alpine Academy, and great, very quick in qualifying, but he got that 3-place grid drop, and he would have been hoping he could have to get back out there. Still might get the chance to do so, to try and get after a win, because he showed that really good pace.
Interestingly, he picked up that grid drop for both races as well.
Yeah.
This year, which seemed like a tough penalty to me for an impeding moment in qualifying. Oliver Goethe retained in Red Bull colours as he makes his move through for his first full season of Formula 2. Completed 2 races at the end of last year. So that'll be a good move for him. Franco Colapinto, then a graduate of the series in Alpine colours, after we've seen him, of course, behind the wheel of a Williams Formula 1 car throughout the end of last year.
Yeah, it was Ollie Goethe who took his seat, of course, when he decided to vacate and head up to Formula 1. Ollie Goethe got his chance in Formula 2. Kush Maini, when we have had wet races last year, Silverstone was one of them, and Kush Maini was on the podium. Had a really good battle, you might remember, with Gabriel Bortoleto. And Gabriel Bortoleto flying quite literally across the line. Alpine reserve driver Kushmaini now as well. And we just saw another one on screen in Franco Colapinto as well.
Joining quite the number of Alpine reserve drivers, isn't
yes.
he, Maini?
He is.
Discussion, him being the test and reserve, with opportunities to test via the testing previous cars program that they have in Formula One. More opportunities for younger drivers to test previous cars now in this year. Limitations on the number of those test days that the established drivers can do, and the amount of kilometers mean that there are more openings for the youngsters to get opportunities to test the previous cars, which I'm sure will be welcome to all. Richard Verschoor rejoining MP Motorsport this year after a run with Van Amersfoort in 2023, Trident in 2024, 9th and 8th in the championship respectively. Completed his first season in Formula 2 back in 2021 with MP Motorsport, did Richard Verschoor, and rejoining the team where he drove most of his junior campaign. Oh,
yeah.
It's like a Spartan shield wall of umbrellas. Don't stand in the gaps.
Yeah, it is. Just take cover for the time being. But good to see the fans are being very patient with the weather. They want to see Formula 2 cars on track. That is what we want to see as well. Hopefully we can get to a position to do that. Do bear with us on this one. Hopefully we can go racing. Yeah.
We feel you.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Someone's made a killing on ponchos.
Yeah.
Get me involved. I want to invest.
Just letting the poncho do its work there, isn't it? Anne-Marie Cordial for Rodin Motorsport this season, driving alongside Alex Dunn. Anne-Marie Cordial will be starting towards the back. 15th place for him in the sprint race yesterday. Made some positions up.
4th season in Formula 2 for the Belgian driver. Was a relatively late call-up for Anne-Marie Cordial, but got a decent amount of experience behind the wheel of this kind of machinery. So, Kushmaini can just about drive that umbrella.
I was going to say, it looks like it's about to go flying, doesn't it?
Yeah. Get to a certain level in single-seater motorsport, team-branded umbrellas are a must.
Yeah.
And Kushmaini making his way back down the pit lane in conditions which, I've got to be honest, don't appear to be approving a huge amount. Sami Megatunov had a bit of an adventurous race yesterday.
Yeah, he saw him go in, well, both Tridents go off. It was a day to forget, all 5 cars not finishing across F3 and F2 for them. Sami Megatunov off into the barriers, but if you haven't seen F3, it went quite well for them, let's just say that.
12:04 formation lap will start. So that is in 5 minutes time, 5-minute warning, back in the cars. Keane Shields just jumping out for a comfort break, I suspect, to get him ready. Drivers, of course, fluid loading before they get in, even for a wet race like this. So a red flag will often lead to the requirement for such things. And if you've not found the entrepreneur with the poncho, that's the only option you've got.
I was going to say, just hope you have a big enough brolly, basically.
Exactly that. 5 minutes, though, until we're able to go back underway with a formation lap. I'm interested to see if the track conditions have improved. I can't see how they can have hugely, but we live in hope.
Yes. Let's hope that we get to a point where the track can become in a safe condition. Drivers now starting to get back, and it's a case of preparing if we are to be in a position to go racing, having had gone through all the motions. Drivers go through a warm-up process, don't they, throughout this, Alex? Quite a lengthy warm-up process where they'll get ready for a race. That is then completely broken up when this happens, and they almost have to do it all over again.
Exactly that. So what's going on now is Formula 2 sits in its time box, if you like, on Grand Prix Sunday for its feature race. So to get the race going in some capacity is important beyond being able to get it going in general. Oof, tell you what.
Wow.
They've diverted to the 4x4.
Says next 10 minutes will be safe rain, and then it will start to get a lot better after that.
Yeah. So the formation lap will, if they're able to let the cars run in the formation lap, it begins the clock on the race and gets it moving, and also cars going round the circuit with the deep treaded wet weather tyres actually assists in clearing the circuit as well. The concern will be, can they keep them on the road behind the safety car? And that's a genuine concern with the amount of rain that's down on the racetrack at the moment. So this, by all forecasts, and the forecasts have been pretty accurate, I must say, throughout the weekend so far, is the worst of the rain that's to be expected, and then getting better after that. We do, though, now have a delayed start once more.
So it was going to be 2 minutes away, but that's now been delayed. So we will wait further instruction from that. All the drivers jumping in and seatbelts going on, but it very much could be another delayed process.
Yeah,
to this.
so the graphic you can see is notation of the formation lap. We've seen a further communication from race control, which is that one, that there is a delayed start, and yes, it is.
Yeah, there we go. And that's the weather radar that you mentioned, Alex, that the racing drivers would have gone out to have a look at, and Richard Verschoor in the car will be ready to go in case that that delayed start message changes at all.
So those weather radars, they don't tend, common misconception, they don't predict the future.
Right.
They actually...
Explain.
Well, they actually look at the past.
Okay.
And it's the job of the person looking at the weather radar to interpret the future from the directionality of the weather system that's coming over.
Okay.
So, yeah, just another racing driver pretending he knows how weather radars work. Estimated time of the formation lap 12:09. So that's another 5 minutes.
Okay, well, we'll wait for the formation lap then at 12:09 and see if we can hopefully see them out for the formation lap. As we heard on team radio, 10 minutes, and that came in about a couple of minutes ago. 10 minutes, that is when we expect the rain is going to get better, the conditions are going to improve.
Yep.
But all the drivers in, ready to go, and this is the first round of the season, Alex. First feature race of the season. And
yeah, we're trying to get a race away, aren't we?
Yeah,
here,
exactly.
And they very much not giving up on it, trying to make sure that this one happens. We've got a decent amount of time for it to happen. Bit of a delay, but let's hope that we can get proceedings underway relatively soon. Here's a race you should watch in eventual terms. I'd wait for this Formula 2 feature race to get going first. But Gabriele Mini versus Leonardo Fornaroli at Monza last year for the Formula 3 Championship is these feeder series races sit in their place in the grand history of motorsport, but some of them are classics, and that's a classic, isn't it? That's one that's really worth revisiting.
That will go down in history, won't it, as one of the best feeder series races there has ever been in terms of the amount that happen. And speaking of weather conditions, the Formula 3, the sprint, the feature race at Silverstone as well, provided to be one of the most entertaining ones we ever saw. And so let's be patient with this one and go with race direction, and they are going to hopefully get us out safely and get us racing when we can for the first feature race of the season. 14 rounds coming up this season in total, just like we had last season, only subtle changes to the order that we will go in. We do have some more testing coming up before the next round as well, where drivers will get a bit more time to adapt to these cars if they're coming up from another series in Formula 3, and before we go to Bahrain. We got the 100% Aramco Advanced Sustainable Fuel as well. That was a first yesterday, wasn't it, Alex? Getting that racing. Formula 1 going to their sustainable fuel next year as well. Just showing why Formula 2 is the future of Formula 1.
Yeah, and that's the direction of the future regulation set in Formula 1 as well. It's really interesting that fuel, 100% sustainable fuel, sounds very generic, doesn't it, when you say it? But it's to an FIA standard that covers not only the actual materials used in the fuel, but also the way the fuel is produced. Tyre in Formula 2 with increased sustainable elements as well. Pirelli always working on the sustainability of the tyres. Wet weather tyres only, of course. Throughout this weekend. No intermediates available in Formula 2, not that we'd necessarily need them at the moment, and drivers are of course required if the race starts behind the safety car for wet conditions to run the wet tyre.
That's starting to look better as well in terms of the rain, isn't it? It's definitely beginning to improve out there, as we heard the teams predicting when we got that shot of the track. And we are 90 seconds away now from this estimated time of the formation lap. In terms of when they go out onto the circuit, yesterday, full dry conditions, full wet today. What changes are we going to be seeing, Alex, coming into this in terms of preparation for the teams and the drivers, setup changes, everything like that?
Yeah, a wet setup is relatively interesting, and it's always a little bit more downforce. You tend to max out the downforce because, of course, you don't reach the terminal speed at the end of the straights. You come out of the corners slower, which means that you don't generate the drag. Of course, drag squaring with speed. So if you're generally going slow around a racetrack, then a higher downforce, higher drag setup is the one. You can see the gurneys on the rear of the MP car there, on the rear of the main plane flap of the front wing, as if to demonstrate. You'd also tend to soften the chassis slightly, so I'm talking roll bars, probably not springs, but damping, and what that does is basically move the bias of the performance of the car more towards mechanical grip and away from aerodynamic grip, because you're going through the slow corners for longer. So because you're going slow around the circuit, you're spending a lot longer time in the slow corners. So you'd bias the setup of the car towards those slow corners by softening the suspension off to give you more braking performance, more traction, a little bit more low speed grip. That also takes away a bit of the capacity for error. Softer cars are more drivable generally, because if you are a little bit too aggressive with brakes or throttle, you'll not overcome the grip of the tyre directly. There'll be a little bit of movement, a little bit of compliance in the chassis to help the driver to manage that better. You tend to move the bias of braking rearwards. So you would ask the rear axle to do more of the braking than the front axle. That's because there's less load transfer in wet conditions. So less of the load's thrown forward as you brake, which means you have to ask the front tyre to do less of the braking and more. Sometimes you even get to 50-50 brake bias. And normally you would bias the braking towards the front axle, tends to be about 56% front. Sometimes you even get as far back as 50-50 in wet conditions. You'd raise the ride height slightly, maybe in conditions like this to keep the aquaplaning away. So there are a lot of things you can do with the car, and of course, Formula 3 cars and Formula 2 cars have multiple throttle maps, which change the way that the throttle talks to the engine. So what you would tend to do is maybe select a throttle map when you're running with a softer front end on the throttle map. So the first sort of 20 degrees of throttle might be a little bit less actual throttle when it comes to the engine side, to give you the ability to pick up the throttle slightly more softly in the early stage and have a little bit more control of the early phases of the throttle pickup.
What about, great insight, by the way, and what about when we come to a street circuit like this? We've never really been around here in the wet before. How do teams, drivers, approach this in terms of setting up the car, getting used to finding out lines? I mean, would they have been chatting to the Formula 3 drivers, for example, who have been out in it earlier? Wow. How do they approach that task? I mean,
not like that.
I was going to say. That's
so there's what they call a driver out of the loop simulation. So there are several different pieces of software you can use. A major one's called Canopy, and it basically drives thousands and thousands of laps, but in data form only, with various different setups on the car. And what you can do with that is actually generate a wet circuit within the model. So they will try to is it same safety car driver as usual?
Do you want to
asking for a friend?
Do you want to do the replay?
Lovely, look at this. Middle of turn 5, splashing. It's actually
there we go.
A non-approved line for the pit commit on the way in, but far be it from me to...
This was the moment.
Look at that. It's
wow.
A spin up of the inside wheel. It's pretty... I will admit to having had a go in a DBX around...
Yeah?
Around Shanghai last year.
Shanghai?
Lively.
Yeah. That lively?
Not quite that lively. It was relatively lively. Conditions were somewhat more conducive to traction at the time.
Right.
So formation lap now 12:18. More information for you that the formation lap will be started behind the safety car on wet weather tyres, which will come as a massive surprise to all. And that will be at 12:18. Time local now is 12:13 and 22 seconds. So that'll give you a feel.
4.5 minutes away then from seeing that. The conditions are starting to improve, aren't they? Definitely. Umbrellas are starting to go down in the pit lane. And Dino Beganovic looking on, hoping he gets a chance to go and race in this one.
Demonstrated his car control yesterday, didn't he, Dino Beganovic?
Yes.
Catching a big spin through the middle
and we
of
saw
turns 9 and 10.
And we saw the reactions from Rafael Villagomez as well in avoidance. Yeah.
Unbelievable reaction.
That was with Sami Megatunev, wasn't it, that one? I believe very, very good reactions.
Well, air temp 17.9 degrees. Some using the poncho technique. Oh,
there we go.
Full umbrella failure for Victor Martins. Look at that. I tell you what. Tell me you're a mechanic without telling me you're a mechanic. Fix that umbrella incredibly quickly.
Yeah, I think he's just given up now. You know what? We don't need it, and that's because we are just over 3 minutes away from getting the formation lap underway. Thank you if you have been with us throughout the broadcast. If you're just joining us, we have tried to get the formation lap going. We've tried to get this race going once, but it was deemed the conditions were not safe enough, and it has improved significantly since then. And we are now getting ready to go for the FIA Formula 2 feature race. This round 1 of the season, the first time we are beginning our season here at Albert Park. It's due to be a 33-lap feature race. Points go to the top 10 in the same fashion they do in Formula One. 25 points to the winner, 60 minutes on the clock, and pit stops come at the end of lap 6.
And just to let all of you at home know that the timing screen that we have at the moment still has an hour on the clock. So although we went out and red flagged the session immediately, there's still an hour left for this one. We'll see how we get on. Sometimes these events bump up against the slot to begin the preparations for the Grand Prix, which of course tend to take, well, will take precedence over getting the Formula 2 feature race away. But at the present time, we see an hour on the clock, 33 laps in the bank, with a mandatory pit stop, so we're expecting this one to go the distance.
We certainly are, and Roman Stanek will be third place. He made himself big in the mirrors yesterday in that very noticeable yellow Invicta. That team looking to retain the title. Their champion, Gabriel Bortoleto, having a great day. I'm sure he'll be finding a poncho and finding somewhere to watch this one, as many fans have piled in, as they always do here, Alex, at Australia for the support race. It gets massive support at this event. They love watching Formula 2 and Formula 3, and we're less than 60 seconds away from seeing Formula 2 out on circuit.
Yeah, over 400,000 fans last year here in Albert Park. Engines firing, old F1 style from the back of the gearbox. Love to see that still in Formula 2. Rod in the back of the gearbox and spin it up. Richard Verschoor's eyes demonstrate the focus that these drivers are going to have to find now, because it's been a long lull while they've been sat there in the pit lane, just catching up with the team. But easy to let just the mental focus drop. Now they've got to plug straight back in, because it really doesn't take long when race direction decides you're going to go, and then you need full focus into that first braking zone. The first time you get down there at racing speed when they go green, you really have to be absolutely on it. Green flag at the end of the pit lane, and out we go again onto the racetrack. Third time lucky, perhaps, for the Formula 2 feature race.
Exactly that. Victor Martins leads us out onto the race circuit behind the safety car for the formation lap, and this will be the start of the formation lap in the FIA Formula 2 feature race for the season opener here at Albert Park. Victor Martins ahead of Richard Verschoor, Roman Stanek in third place, Gabriele Mini is fourth, Dino Beganovic fifth, then it will be Luke Browning in P6, Joshua Dirksen, our winner yesterday, P7. Leo Fornaroli was on the podium yesterday, he's P8. Sebastian Montoya 9th, then Ritomo Miata 10th. Just outside the top 10, we've got the two Red Bull Juniors in Lindblad and Marty. Crawford, who did not finish yesterday, is 13th. Villa Gomez is 14th. Done a hard charger yesterday in the McLaren livery is 15th. And then Goethe, the other Red Bull Junior, 16th. Bennett is 17th. Shields 18th. Miney 19th, the Alpine Academy driver. Then Megatunif, Cordial and Esterson.
Oh, gives you a shiver down your spine watching the rear light up for Luke Browning. This is the area of the circuit that's the trickiest. Mid-corner of turn 6, there looks to be a decent amount of standing water. There's some on the apex of 5 as well. And then the run down, look, it's unsighted between the barriers down towards turn 9. You can see the difficulty, you can see the visibility for the drivers. That's the challenge, and you can see the standing water as well. Those white lines will be treacherous in these conditions, and that's why drivers will have to have their wits about them in any kind of wet condition. Look at the difference, look at the advantage of starting the race when they do so out front for Victor Martins. Clear road ahead, and all you've got to do is be the first one in to spot every braking point. Simple as that.
As you mentioned, though, it's getting down to the braking zone for the first time.
Okay, Jack, so we will have only 24 minutes of race from now on, so it will be around 12 laps. The rule of mandatory pit stop from lap 7 only is still on, so we cannot pit before lap 7.
Okay, so teams getting information a little bit before we do here, as is probably the correct way of things. So we'll go with Dams on that one. So mandatory pit stop rule is always after lap 6 in the feature race. Even though it is a wet race, they still must make a pit stop. Of course, they don't have to use both compounds because they're on the wet tyre. The fact they've driven on the wet tyre rescinds that rule, but they have to change at least 2 tyres in a mandatory pit stop. The adjustment of the racing distance, we haven't had the full rundown yet, but it sounds like Dams have.
Yeah, they have, and we get ready for this 12-lap dash in this feature race. That is certainly going to spice things up with pit stops coming at the end of lap 7. Well, towards the front of the field, Victor Martins will be ahead of Richard Verschoor. Third place in that yellow Invicta is Roman Stanek. He took victory here last year. We caught up with the top 3 after qualifying on Friday. Let's start with hearing from the sprint race winner of 2024, Roman Stanek.
Yeah, so looks like it's going to be a very tricky race because the weather here in Melbourne is changing a lot. And to be honest, I'm quite good with wet conditions, so not a problem for me. And yeah, I'm really looking forward.
Well, I think we are aiming to win the race, of course. Very happy to start at the front. Hopefully rain. Yeah, I hope for some rain. I'm Dutch, so I should aim for rain. But even if not, I think we have a strong car.
Staying calm, knowing what to do, controlling everything in the car, having a good radio communication with the team will be key for Sunday.
As you can tell, they were expecting rain, and now they have got it. So they would have had time mentally to get prepared for this challenge coming up. And there we get the helicopter shot of the drivers behind the safety car. But now, how do they readjust, Alex, to a 12-lap race?
Yeah, so, well, first things first. What every driver will be thinking about as they're sitting behind the wheel now is that first braking zone. So they'll be rehearsing it every time they get there, down to turn 1, just to make sure that they don't throw the race away straight away. Yeah. That adds pressure. The shortening of the race distance adds pressure to the start and the restart. These drivers know in their heart of hearts it's relatively likely that they're going to get a restart, then there'll be some sort of incident. So they know that the race is realistically going to be one of nailing several braking points in the early phases of these restarts before there's either another stoppage or there's a gap that grows in the field because the drivers have visibility or they don't. So Martins will be trying, look, both sides of the road down into turn 1, figure out where he wants to be, try the apex 1 lap, try the wide line next lap, try and figure out exactly where I want to hit the brakes and exactly where I want to place the car, not only to be quick enough, but also just to mitigate the risk of a silly little lockup that could cost me a position that's going to be baked in as soon as there is a spin or another safety car or a virtual safety car or another issue. Then they'll be thinking about the pit stop, which is ever more critical in a short race distance because you've got less time after it to recover any kind of error. It's going to be wet in the pit lane. It's the shortest pit lane of the Formula 2 season and one of the tightest pit lanes as well. So putting extra pressure on the crews, working in wet conditions, of course. Everything's slippery. The wet conditions are in no way limited to the racetrack, so adding an extra challenge for the mechanics.
It really does. Here we see them coming through now, getting ready to go. And now they will be thinking about that restart, about that challenge. Oh, and we've got a spinner. That's a Red Bull Junior. I wonder if that is Ollie Goethe, given we are on board with Sami Megatunif. And whoever it is will try and get back going again as we pick up the leader, Victor Martins, behind the safety car. But
it's raining even more again. Copy, man.
confirmation of the rain, and I think it was Oliver Goethe who may have had a rotation through that really tricky section of the circuit. 16 minutes I now see on the timing screen, so that is an update of the race time. We saw an hour when they went back out on the racetrack. The race time is updated. We're up against the limitation here of all of the furniture that goes around the Formula One Grand Prix, so let's see if we actually manage to get any racing in. The track looks treacherous, I must admit. In reality, the safety car, though, picking up a little bit of speed, so let's see.
Yeah, for a little while there, didn't it? It was really starting to improve, and then now Sebastian Montoya coming out that penultimate corner, we could see how much he was spinning up. Down to turn 1, Victor Martins behind the safety car. The clock is ticking. Vasseur, Stanek behind him. There is a lot of spray, isn't there, down to turn 1?
There is a lot of spray. So 15 minutes, 36 seconds on the clock. We'll be counting down the laps for the purposes of racing laps and points. We're going to have to get across that as we get towards the mid-stage of this race, and it's looking more and more tricky. That more and more like we're unlikely to get this race underway. Let's see. Still got 15 minutes to do it. Safety car leading the field around, and we have a red flag again.
There we go. So a red flag coming out, and we will go back to pit lane. Safety car will take us back out, and it's red flag out once again, and the conditions not safe enough for us to go racing. And looking at them going round, no surprise there.
Yeah, which they're trying to get the race going, aren't they? They're trying to get the race going, get some cars out there, move a bit of water off the circuit surface, but it just ain't happening, is it? In realistic terms, nothing that can be done about the reality of the conditions. And safety first, as always.
Yeah,
it gives the fans a look at the cars and keeps everything on track for a day's Grand Prix racing. But at the same time, it's a real shame for these young drivers that the conditions have ended in the way that they have, and have prevented what could have been such a thrilling contest between these young drivers. Victor Martins will lead the field back in to the red flag, back into the pit lane. No further information at the moment as to whether we will continue to persevere. 13 minutes on the clock, which continues to tick down. We are again under red flag conditions at Albert Park.
Well, the fans have seen them go round the cars behind the safety car, and we have tried to get the race underway. That's why we get out behind the safety car, gets a view of whether we can get in a condition to get this race going. But right now, the safety team have deemed that the track is just not in a safe enough condition, and the clock continues to tick down. 12 minutes and 45 seconds left on it. A real shame, as you mentioned, for the drivers. We had a great sprint race yesterday, hugely entertaining, and they all would have been well up for this challenge of a wet feature race. But the rain has really come down hard on us here at Albert Park. But the teams making a huge effort in all areas, both the teams down in pit lane and all the safety team as well, to try and get this one going. There is Richard Vasseur, second place on the road, and the race has now been cancelled. So that is coming in, that the race is now cancelled. Race control has come to us, and that is confirmation that this one has been cancelled. It's something that we have seen before in the past. The conditions, sadly, getting the better of us on this occasion. Safety must come first, and they have deemed that we are not in a safe enough condition for us to go racing. No lap times, no official laps have come in yet, so we await to see in terms of points what will happen. But Victor Martins, Richard Verschoor, Roman Stanek is our current order. For now, what we do know, Alex, is that the race has been cancelled and the drivers now will make their way back to the garages.
Yeah, no green flag laps run. Such a shame for these drivers, but you can see where drivers are losing it under the safety car. That essentially it's going to be difficult to run a race. And just to add insult to injury, the rain stops as drivers are hopping out of the car, and the umbrellas start to go down. Cancelled Formula 2 race here in Albert Park. Victor Martins was due to start from pole. Will be disappointed with that. The opportunity to take away a great victory to start a season which sees him as one of the favoured drivers going into it. Shame for all the fans who've made their way to the circuit side as well. Thank you to all of you who've tuned in for this one. We really appreciate your company.
Well, it's sadly just not meant to be for Victor Martins this weekend, isn't it? And that's a real shame for him, and we're hearing that there is no official result of this race, and that's a real shame. The race, as you can see, has been cancelled, and that will mean that there's no result for this race, and that means no points going out either. So that's a real shame, an opportunity lost for the drivers out front, big time if you're the likes of Victor Martins.
Yeah, a discussion there with Roman Stanek, the ability to talk with the hands there, demonstrating it all. Cancelled Formula 2 race means no official result, means no points given out for this one, is what we understand at the moment. Look out for an official result. Well, that was an adventure.
Yeah.
But great to see these cars driven to their limit throughout qualifying and the sprint race. We did manage to get away yesterday. It would have been thrilling to watch these young drivers go for it over 33 laps, but safety first, as always, in the world of feeder series racing. And we roll on to the next round, Chris.
It was a great sprint race. If you haven't watched it, go back and do so. And we had some great Formula 3 racing as well. So if you haven't seen those, go back and catch up. But this race may be cancelled, but Formula 2 is far from over in 2025. In fact, we're only just getting started. This is the first of 14 rounds. The drivers will have some in-season testing between the 26th and 28th of March. And then we will go racing for round 2 at Bahrain on the 12th and 13th of April. Where we will officially continue our season. Shortly after that, just a week later, we will head to Jeddah. So 2 more rounds coming very quickly in April. Thanks to all of you who tuned in, but we will be back in April. For now, though, from all of us here at Albert Park, it is goodbye. We will see you at Bahrain on the 12th and 13th of April.
Sky Sports F1.